Good morning, everyone. Well, I'm recording this in the afternoon, if you can tell by the sun. I had to run into town, had a routine doctor's appointment. They're moving my knee up the scale. I got to get an MRI scheduled so that I can actually go back to walking, or hiking, I should say. I walk a little bit. In any case, did that in the morning. I got back, we had scattered rain. The ground's still wet. It's muggy. I've got my air conditioning running, and eventually I'll plug the hole in this wall back here. Okay. And this is the weekend. No, this is Monday as I'm recording this. Time flies. Okay, yesterday was a good day because we had a church group in here. They took over the pavilion. You can rent that. They had a gathering, lunch, but they had a baptism. There was 4 or 5 adults, I think, 3 or 4 kids. I always enjoy watching those. A new life born. Baptism won't get you to heaven, but it's the first thing you can do for God when you become a Christian. Show the world how you feel. Even Jesus was baptized. John the Baptist said, "No, wait, you should be baptizing me." And Jesus says, "Well, first you have to baptize me because that's the way we do things here." Jesus fulfilled all prophecies and the proper way to be. They were the chosen people, and he represented that. All right, so you ever have one of those days where no matter how hard you try, everything just seems to come against you? You're beginning to question, where did I leave God somewhere? I thought I was a child of God and that he'd look after us. Why is it going so bad? It can be depressing after a while. Now, I'm not saying I'm having this now, but I have had these feelings in my life. And you start questioning everything you're doing. Start asking God, should I do this? Should I do this? Are you going to do this with me if I do this? There's any number of reasons as to why things can go south. Could be sin, and sin in front of God's eyes can be very, very simple so that we don't even notice it. Sin can be simply, we turn left when God wanted us to turn right. So that's the first thing to do. Look at your life, get your life squared away, confess anything that you know to God, and if you don't know, still confess it anyway. He covers all sin, known and unknown. But it could just be we're being tried. We're being an example to others to show how you can work your way through troubles. There are a million ways that could cause things to go south on you, and you couldn't guess them all if you tried. So don't. Just commit yourself to God. What you're doing is for God. And let him work out the details. In Proverbs 16:3, commit your works to the Lord, and your thoughts will be established. Do what you're doing for the Lord, and he will help you to think your way through it. And then go with whatever comes your way. If you've included God at the start, you'll stay through it all the way, regardless of whether or not it's difficult, where it seems wrong, but it's really right. We don't know the big picture. We're looking through blinders most of the time. So just keep doing it. If God is in control, then Why are we struggling? Why is the world in the shape that it's in if God is in control? We have a gracious God who will give us what we want, regardless of whether we need it or not. That's why the world's in a mess. The things that are wrong out there are things that man has asked for and got. And the world is messed up. It's fixing to get real in the Middle East. A lot of countries are telling Israel, don't retaliate or we'll come after you. Turkey, Russia, some smaller countries, they're all threatening to attack Israel if they go after Hamas after another egregious attack. The Antichrist is going to solve all that. Don't have to know how, just know that the Antichrist will solve it, and that's good for us. It's bad for them, but good for us, because that means we're getting out of here. We could shut the devil and the Antichrist down like that. Get behind me, Satan, and he has to go. Stop doing what you're doing, Antichrist, and he has to stop. Doesn't matter whether he's got the biggest, baddest demon in the world inside of him, making him the Antichrist. Neither he nor his boss have any authority in God's kingdom. 1 Peter 1:6. In this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while, if need be, you have been grieved by various trials. They went through trials. The first century was rough on Christians. That the genuineness of your faith being much more precious than the gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to praise, honor, and glory at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Can you praise and have joy in the middle of trials? Only with God's help, with Jesus' help. So you got to stay connected and trust. Verse 8, whom having not seen, you love. That's us today. That's the people that Peter was writing to, because Jesus was not there. Though now you do not see him, yet believing, you rejoice with joy, inexpressible and full of glory. Their joy wasn't, the cartoon Droopy, I'm so happy. Yeah. They were leaping and jumping and praising God. Familiar with that verse? Can you leap for joy? I was reading a quick little story. Barbara Sinatra, the wife of Frank Sinatra, in an interview had said that he'd come in and help people in need. Sammy Davis Jr. lost his eye. Frank came in, helped him out, stayed with him in the hospital, let him stay with him in his house in Palm Springs to recuperate. Other people he did the same thing with. There was no racial barriers, and he was there to help. He was friends with Gene Kelly when Gene lost his son. Came in, and same thing with Frank Sinatra when he lost his son. Frank was there. Gene Kelly taught him to dance a little bit. And he said one of the things that Frank liked to do was to jump up in the air and kick his heels. I'd do that, and then I'd hear the ambulance ride. But that's jumping for joy. And that's his reward for helping people. We're going to see a lot of these people again. And that'll be a joyous time. Speaking of joy, James 1:2. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials. If you know you're not sinning, count it joy, because it is doing one of two things: perfecting you or giving you a presence to present Jesus. It's either strengthening you through fire, or it's allowing the world to see you surviving in the midst of what would to them be a bad time. But if you're happy and joyous, Paul sang their version of hymns back in his day in prison with the other prisoners. That's joy. Knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience, but let patience have its perfect work. Don't ask God to end the trial until it's time. You can ask him to end it, but at the right time. Not my will be done, your will be done. That you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. See, if you can survive a bad world, then you can survive the world we're heading into. You don't have to go all the way in, but you've got to be at the door as it slams shut. You might still be able to reach through the doorway and pull somebody through. I've watched some of the old war movies, especially about ships, because I was in the Navy. And during an attack, especially like on a submarine, now I couldn't be on a submarine because I'm claustrophobic. And those World War II ones were tiny. The big ones they're pretty good size, but still, knowing I'm underwater, and I don't know how much the psychology would work. I've tried doing museums of submarines, and I can't go in them very well. But you see them, it's flooding, and they pull the door closed, knowing that the people cannot get out, but it's saving everybody else on the dry side. Can you be joyous in a situation like that? I don't know. I don't really want to find out. But I would hope that my heart would be in the right spot, that I at least would trust God. And then finally, Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, the prophet of doom, however you want to call him. He had something from God for everybody. So much so that they eventually locked him up in prison because they got tired of hearing him. You better straighten up or God's going to punish you. Well, how do you deal with it? Do you lock him in the closet and close the door so you don't have to hear him anymore? Or do you go, well, I guess you're right, I probably should. Well, back then they locked him up. If you have run with the footmen, they have wearied you, then how can you contend with horses? You don't know what's coming with you, You have to train for worst case scenario. I tell you to prepare. I don't know how long we're going to be here before the rapture. It's a rapture for a reason. It's bad. Are we going to be without food? If they enact the mark of the beast, definitely, because Christians won't take the mark. So we won't be here. But how close to that are we going to get? You might practice fasting so you know how to deal with no food. But you should also have some food stashed away. And if you don't use it, your friends and family who don't get to go will have it to survive, so they can have time enough to make a decision. And if in the land of peace in which you trusted, they weary you in times of normal times, if you're getting tired today in the Americas that are relatively peaceful, if this is tiring, you're not going to be able to handle what's coming. Train for worst case scenario, and then you're equipped for anything. God does the work. He gives you the things to say. He provides all the things you need to do what you need to do for Him. So don't say, how can I do this? I don't have the resources. If you commit to God and say, I'll do this, He'll provide the resources. And how will you do in the floodplain of the Jordan? The Jordan can flow over its bank. It's like the Nile. The farming would count on this. They'd plant, the floods would happen, and that would water. That's how you farm in a desert. Now, nowadays they can make water, they can transport it, they can get it where they need it to go. But back then they didn't have all that technology. So they had to use Mother Nature, God. And that's a figure of speech that this world uses, but we understand what it means. We know it's God. Mother Nature will take care of things if you know how to use the resources. Floods every year, same time of year, have something ready to grow. And God will take care of the rest. For even your brothers, the house of your father, even they have dealt with treachery. Even they have dealt treachery with you. The body of the church was dealing with them. Jesus didn't like organized religion. So if you don't, that's okay. Like people, but not the organization. People you can deal on a one-to-one basis. To you and them, and then to God. But an organization, you got, God by committee. Doesn't work. Dealt treachery with you. Yes, they have called a multitude after you, but do not believe them, even though they speak smooth words to you. Be careful of those who sweet talk you. Any boss doesn't want a bunch of yes men around. You need people that will tell you the truth. The best graphical example of that is from Fifth Element. Ruby Rod, when he's on the ship, acting as arrogant as possible. Such a good actor to do that part. Signing autographs with a paintbrush and just swiping across. Arrogance. And he goes, was that any good? And all of his yes people go, oh yeah, fantastic, amazing. You don't want people like that. It's maybe good to have one or two, but you should have more who will tell you, well, you could have done better here, or this should have been right here. You missed this opportunity here. You want that too. But God is your best cheerleader. You want to get that information to you to help you? Listen to Him. It's in the Word, but if you don't know how to apply it, pray more. Then listen quietly. Praying is you talking to God, and zip it and listen for the response. You might have to listen a long time, but eventually you hear it. And then you go, you're right, I see that. We can do it that way. Not, I can do it that way. We can do it that way. It is not going to be pleasant here soon. Start doing your push-ups and whatever else you have to do. And you've got mental push-ups too. This is a muscle between your ears. Exercise it. Exercise it with the Word of God, though. Now, we've all got, jobs to do besides our normal stuff that we do. Put the appropriate time where it needs to be. But if you're behaving godly at work, you might have to deal with situations that you don't want to have to deal with. Jesus, here it is. What do I do with this? I give you the words to say that will smooth the waters. And if they don't, and they show you the door, then Jesus is showing you the door too. But be looking when you walk out the door for your next place, because God's already got a place for you. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Get out there and make a difference. You see, when they started praying in France, they started backing down. Now, some of the leaders over there don't ever back down because they're working for the devil, and he doesn't back down until God tells him. But the country started backing down. It's, it's never going to be perfect. We're never going to go back to the way it was. We're going to move on, though. It's perfect in heaven. Till we meet in the clouds. God bless.